joining us today. And I will introduce, and as I introduce, if they could come and take their seats. Lori Reiner, CPA, Chief People Officer at Eisner Advisory Group. Let's give Lori a hand. We have Margot Goodson, CPA, VP Certified Diversity Executive at SAP. And we have Carrie Robertson, AVP of Human Resources, Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer at Pierce College. To get started, we would ask the panelists if they can provide a quick overview of their roles in their organizations and introduce themselves, give a brief review. And as an executive leader, how has the importance of finance and business knowledge acumen played a role in your career advancement? So we'll start off with Lori.
Can everybody hear me? Oh, there we go. All right, great. Hi, everyone. Great to see you. Thank you so much for coming out. For those that are participating virtually, it's good to have you along with us. My name is Lori Reiner. I'm EisnerAmper's Chief People Officer. EisnerAmper is a global accounting firm. We rank 18th in the world, and we're very excited about the growth trajectory that we've been on for the last few years. So we've gained over 1,500 people in the last 2 years. And since I've moved into the HR role about 5 years ago, we've more than doubled the size of the firm. So I am a CPA by background. I was a practice partner in the firm since 1999. I've been in public accounting since the mid-'80s, so which makes me really date myself. And I'm really happy to be here today and talk about this topic of finance and HR and the intersection. So thanks for having me.
Thank you, Lori. Now we will have Margot.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. Margot Goodson, and I am Vice President, Head of North America Diversity and Inclusion at SAP. If you're not familiar with SAP, we're a business-to-business software company, global giant, headquartered globally in Germany, but North America headquarters right here in Delaware County on Westchester Pike. And so we're a company of 105,000 people globally, 25,000 in US and Canada, which is my responsibility to set strategy around our workforce diversity initiatives, our workplace inclusion, and our marketplace leadership. My background is CPA Six Sigma Green Belt before becoming a certified diversity executive. And what I can say is that what led me to the journey is I always did two things outside of my current role to embed in a company. And those were always people facing. So whereas I initially felt numbers were my passion, now I know that I have my passion as my profession with people. And so it's been pretty exciting, but knowing to be able to manage budgets and to understand the language in which we need to speak, regardless of what department we were in, is where I can tell you that my financial background and acumen has certainly been tangential and then now integrated into my current role. So we'll get into a little bit more about that. But yeah, data, numbers, analytics has always been a part of the journey and tied to the people topics. And that's where it was a natural move for me to go from those types of roles to this role since January of 2018. So thanks for having me.
Thank you, Margot. And Carrie Robinson.
Can you hear me? Oh, there we go. My name is Carrie Robinson, and I am the Associate Vice President of HR and Chief Diversity Officer at Pierce College. I have my background in HR spans with restaurant industry, healthcare, social service, finance, you name it. I think I've done everything but retail in the HR space. I do not have a finance background. So for me, my journey and having to learn the financials of an organization is just that. It was a journey because I was struggling with managing my own checkbook, let alone learning the finances of a company. But it's very, very important. And I would say it was pivotal for me when I took an interim CEO role at one of my organizations to understand the finances and what that means to operations and how that impacts our people.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Now we're going to get into the questions. And I'm going to start with Carrie. I know you say you don't have, you didn't have a finance background, but do you think it's important to know both finance and business in order to advance or have a seat at the table as a business leader?
Absolutely. It's paramount, actually, because if you want to be respected in your field and you're serious about human capital, it's important to have a financial understanding because you represent the people and you also represent the organization. And if you don't have a seat at the table and understand finances, then it's really hard for you to advocate on behalf of staffing. It's hard for you to really get across to your peers or other senior leaders the importance of certain initiatives, the importance of recruitment, the importance of systems, the importance of talent acquisition, the importance of employee recognition programs, but you have to be able to show how it's going to impact the bottom line, building your people. So if you don't have that knowledge, then you aren't going to have a seat at the table. And if you don't have a seat at the table, how can you adequately represent the people that you're working for?
Thank you. Same question for you, Lori. You need me to repeat the question?
No, I think I'm good. So yeah, so I feel like Margot and I will have a lot of this same but similar because I was a practice partner in an accounting firm. So I'm an accountant by background and literally have practiced that my entire career. And as I became a partner in the firm and built a beautiful practice of clients, I also was, in addition to whatever services I was providing, assurance or tax, consulting services, one of the things that I think you provide to mid-market companies, or at least I aspire to do, is to really become more than just their accountant, right? To become their trusted business advisor, the truly business advisor. And so I aspired, like you said, to have a seat at the table, with my CEOs, owners of the business, the boards of directors, et cetera. And I really, like, that was my favorite part of my job. Like, I could have continued to practice and service my clients for a very long time. And so when I moved into the HR role, I basically said to everyone in HR, we're not doing HR in a box. We have to partner with the business. We have to like really understand the business, and I can help you to be that bridge because I've lived this business my entire career. So we'll definitely get into more about that. However, there's no question that I feel like that partnership with the business and like understanding the impact that we have on the bottom line is integral to really being able to do our jobs.
Great, thank you so much. HR and finance are two distinct entities in an organization, both with different focus points. Why is HR and finance an important relationship to meet business outcomes, Margot?
Thank you for the question. I mean, if we think about HR and finance, they're both business operations. They're the back office. They keep everyone else doing what they do, right? And so it's important to have them as key customers and partners in the process and to understand the intersecting pieces of it. So for HR, you're worried about what needs to be done for your workforce, around your workforce, and to benefit your workforce. So it could be compensation and pay equity. It could be your bonus structure. It could be your holidays, because that's a P&L hit and you take a day and you're closed. You need to understand that. Finance has to work with you to say, okay, this is not revenue generating. Therefore, where are we going to offset that? And how are we going to do the proper matching of expenses and revenue in the quarters that you're trying to spend money, then that we're making our money. So it's key to have regular meetings. We do that on a regular basis with our finance committee. We look at the run rates of our budgets. We look at, if we're going to do an extra holiday, what does that mean? If we're going to increase the compensation structures for different levels, what does that mean? If we're going to give bonuses, how equitably will they be distributed? Which managers are going to get what? So really understanding the P&L and the impact that that has on the business overall and the proper periods in which to execute your transactions is really key. Know your fiscal year. Some people don't understand that term nor the timeline. Know your fiscal year, know how to manage that against what you're looking to do, and trying to have a business case justification for anything you're putting forth. If you want to have the credibility and you want to have the influence over what is being requested, it's important for you to be able to articulate that business case justification. You want to be able to say, I'm not just asking for this as a nicety. This is a necessity. This is a business imperative. And I'm not challenging your moral abilities. This is to let you know what we need to do and how we need to do it and where it's going to impact it and how it looks in the market. And our stockholders care about it. And our investor relations person is tweeting on it. And this is what you need to do and know in order to make it happen. So although they are two distinct departments, they're two operational backbone units of the functioning organization that quite honestly, they can't do what they do without those teams doing what we do behind the scenes.
So right today, I was interviewing someone for a mobility opportunity on one team in a manager role. And the topic of, you just said it, fiscal year came up, and one of the questions the candidate asked me, who's doing a great job in her current role, she asked me, she's like, what are my priorities for the next year, for the next 12 months? And she meant it like, or for the rest of the calendar year. And I said, well, actually, we're getting, our fiscal year is August 1st, like July 31st. And I said, so we're actually doing our budget for the next 12 months. So why don't I answer it from that perspective? And then she like perked up. And she's like, oh, I didn't really realize that. So it is very important. That was an excellent addition.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much, ladies. Carrie, what has been your journey to establish a relationship with finance to drive HR initiatives? And what were some key steps that established the collaboration?
That's a really good. I'm doing something wrong here. Okay, so I'll give an example. Part of what I think that I'm good at in organizations hiring me to do is to streamline workflow, and to take organizations from a very manual process. I always seem to get dragged into manual processes and take it to another level, bring organizations into this century. It's really, really hard to do if you don't have a good relationship with the financial team, because paper's cheaper, right? They think paper's cheaper than systems. So for instance, if you want to implement like an applicant tracking system, or you want to implement a learning management system, where they're just accustomed to everybody show up to training, sign in on a paper sheet, somebody do a presentation, and then you call it a day. But how do you do reporting, right? How do you make sure everyone's compliant? How do you make sure that your LMS is actually your DE&I needs? Applicant tracking, how long is it taking us to fill a seat? If you have a paper process, you have no idea, right? And so you can show finance how they're losing money by continuing. The organization is losing money because we're losing productivity by continuing along this manual process. And when you build that relationship with finance, it's like a light bulb goes off. They're like, oh, you're like, sure, the LMS is $10,000, but guess what? We lost $50,000 because we had that position vacant for 6 months because nobody could get around to going through all the paper resumes. So it's important, very, very important that you think about your systems, how they're going to impact your people, how they impact the bottom line. And that's when you can build that relationship with your financial team.
That is great.
The one aspect that people don't consider is opportunity cost. So what's the cost of doing something? People usually can quantify that. What's the cost of not doing something? What's the cost of waiting too long to do something? What's the cost of high turnover because you weren't advancing people, right? So all of those things matter. And a lot of times that's left out of the calculation. People are very task driven as opposed to analytical. And that's where the relationship can become really connected and really effective, is when you can show the impact of what you're doing. So not just the what, but the why and the how, and then the costs associated with it and the costs associated with not doing it, and what that does to your brand, to your bottom line, to your relationships with your customers, your partners, and ecosystem.
Yes, thank you very much. And those are the type of reporting and things that we need to show why we need to do things and why we need the money to do them.
And also just like, what do you look like from the outside? Like looking in too, like everywhere else you were able to submit an online application and what that experience looks like and what does it look like to be manual on the outside. So just, it gives people that are interested in working for your company, just definitely.
Well, Lori, as we continue, I have a question for you. What overlaps in duties, personnel, resources exist between the two, and how can it be best capitalized from your perspective?
Oh, yeah, that's a great question. So thank you. So first of all, 5 years ago, when I moved into this role from my former role, we relied 100% on finance to produce all HR data. The HR team didn't have a data bone in its body. And then you have an accountant coming in to like lead the thing. And I was just like, okay, well, we're going to change this. The headcount report came from finance. The turnover report came from finance. That was pretty much all the data we had. That was pretty much the only KPIs. And it's completely changed today. We've built a wonderful HR data team. And of course, what ends up happening is you build it and then people want more data. And so we're filled with data and analysis and slicing and dicing of all sorts of things that we'll talk about today. I would say that I've had the opportunity to transition. First, when I came into the role, there was a CFO in his role, and we became very fast friends. I always said to the CFO, I would not want to be a CFO in an accounting firm, because you basically have like the entire firm thinking they could do your job and thinking, like just whatever. And so that's a hard job to be the CFO of an accounting firm. And so between the first CFO that I worked with, and then last year we made a transition, unfortunately. And new CFO, I decided to become his onboarding buddy. I thought that was a good thing to do. And we developed a very nice relationship, and I've really helped him navigate the firm. And so I do think that relationship's super important. And I would say the two things that probably come to mind that we collaborate mostly on is compensation and benefits. So we're a people firm. We don't do widgets. We're a people firm, and number one cost in the P&L is compensation and benefits, and the insurance is related to that. So we spend a lot of time together on those topics, and leverage our outside advisors from a benefits perspective, and really working together to come up with a compensation module, a model that really works, keeps our people competitively paid. As you can possibly imagine, the profession of public accounting has been around for a long time, and the Big Four are very vocal as to all the wonderful things they're providing their people, and our people get to read that every day. So they come with lots of ideas about all the things they want to do. And so we worked very well together to do many of them, not all, but many.
May I? So I hate, and I can use that word, I think, duplication. So reducing redundancies actually will help from an operational perspective and a cost perspective. So where you see the overlapping pieces between finance and accounting, and HR, remind them segregation of duties as a principle in accounting, right? Consistency, those sorts of things, that you do want your HRIS systems to be separate, and let that data and analytics take place there. And then let the things that are related to a financial aspect happen within finance. If I want to know how many women we have, how many people in whatever generation or whatever ethnicity, that has nothing to do with finance. I don't need them to do that for me. It's reporting, it's data and analytics, but it's a different level. But when I need to know the cost structure associated with T1, T2, T3, then I need to coordinate. Actually, I coordinate with our total rewards team, which is not in finance, but they have access to that financial data. And so at SAP, not only are we a technology company that has all those systems and HR's processes and things in place, we also know that from an operational perspective, what's going to make a difference. And if you don't have that proper segregation of duties, you're going to have the duplication, you're going to lose your simplification, and you're going to add complexity where it's not necessary. So there will be some tangential pieces that you want to work through, but you certainly don't want to have things completely overlapping and duplicating if you can from an operational perspective.
That's a good point. Thank you very much, Margot. So I have a question for all you ladies. As HR professionals, we know that finance and HR speak different languages and have different approaches to business. How do they relate from your perspective? And what has been your strategy to learn other languages to add value and use in your role? And I will start with Lori.
Yeah, I think I've been fortunate to have some pretty people-centric CFOs, or at least they purport to be. And so I do think that they understand that there's a return on investment when we do certain things. So this last year, we've been able to make really good changes to a lot of the benefits that we offer, our time off. You talked about like what it costs a company to have an extra paid day off. So we kind of really embedded into our holiday count, the firm's holiday calendar, some additional days off because people wanted them. They were asking for them. Again, a lot of our peer firms do that already. And so we really built a lot of those things in. And then the truth of the matter is, in the profession of public accounting, especially for our client service professionals, they really do, they work a lot. They work a lot. You know, we have deadlines, regulated deadlines. We're a regulated profession. And so, you know, as an HR professional, to be able to have that conversation with our CFO and for them to like really understand our business and get that the work still has to get done, right? The work still has to get done, and just making sure that we're giving people enough time away from work, that we're giving them the benefits that they really want and want to take advantage of, enjoy, and knowing that that has an impact on retention, has an impact on the bottom line, and that at the end of the day, they understand they need to be servicing their clients, be good to their teams that they're working on. It really is a partnership with the CFO.
Thank you, Lori. Carrie?
Yes, so I didn't have any financial language besides debit and credit, maybe. So none. So I actually had to go out and educate myself. So I bought a book that I highly recommend. I got my master's through Villanova, and I learned compensation and finance from the head of comp at Comcast, which is what I love about a Villanova education, is you really learn from people who are in it. And this is one of the books that we used, and it really helped me and saved me, because if you can't speak the language or people are speaking to you, well, for those of you that have tried to speak to people in another language, you're just looking at each other like, what? You know, and then you're not respected. And so it's really, really important that if you don't have a financial acumen, it's okay, but you should go out and educate yourself, like I said in the beginning, so that you have a seat at the table. It just becomes increasingly important. So that's what I did.
Thank you very much.
So my response is the language is business. It's not personal. We're at these workplaces for a reason, and it's business. So we need to be able to speak the business language. And at the end of the day, that's the bottom line, physically and financially. And so understanding the various components, I need to understand what's happening in our CSR, corporate social responsibility organization. I need to know what's happening in marketing, because they need to market more diversely, inclusively, and I need their budget to be on top of mine in order to get what I need to get done. So we have to be able to know that and understand what their focus is to speak all of those languages. We need to speak the language of early talent, of professional talent, of executive talent. We need to speak the language that our CEO understands. We need to speak the language that our CFO understands. And we need to know to speak the language that our frontline workers understand. So at the end of the day, it's the business language that you need to make sure that you're aware of, and the industry that you're in, and the outcome and organizational goals of your company. So our company talks about we help the world run better and improve people's lives with our technology, our software. Well, likewise, I say, and our employees' lives. We have to help these employees run better. You know, like I'm tying it to our organizational goals. Don't you want us to be the best? Because we're not our best. We can't give you the best and what we service and give to our customers. And so you really have to let them see where it's tied into the business. And a lot of times you'll hear people say, your network is your net worth. And it's not about who you know or what you know, but who knows you and the value you bring. And the more languages you speak, the more value you bring, whether that is foreign languages literally, or if that is financial languages and business language. A lot of us work for global companies. So I've had to learn a little German. I had to brush up on my Spanish, you know. So you want to be multilingual in a lot of ways, but the business is the bottom line.
If I can also just add also one more practical thing, it's really, if you can make things easier for people to make decisions, then they'll make the decision. And so for instance, learn Excel, right? Learn how to spreadsheet things. I mean, just the other day, I had to run comp on all of our positions, and I had to show where people were in the midpoint. What's the comp ratio? How many people are not at the comp ratio? And I had to give that bottom line and then do a comparison that if these people leave, because they will leave as a COVID, jobs are out here now, people are paying 2 times the salary. This is going to be the cost. I could actually show that comparison. But if you can't do that type of work, if you don't know how to use your resources, then you're leaving it up to finance to figure it out. And they're like, budget time. Nope, not doing it. Moving on. You know, so it's just important too, that there's some very simple practical things that you need to be able to do as an HR professional that overlaps with finance.
Because if you leave it up to somebody else will have your job.
Yeah.
Because they'll say, well,
That-
she can't or he can't do it. so
And there's
somebody else
lots
has to
of
do it.
things out there too. I mean, LinkedIn Learning is a great source of Excel.
Thank you, ladies. And you touched on this already a little bit, Carrie. You know, we hear a lot that HR must learn the business to advance and add value. What is the importance for HR professionals having a solid understanding of the financial aspects, such as budgeting and managing for profitability, as well as reading and understanding financial statements? And I'm sure you can speak to this much because you had to learn this because you're not having that financial background.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, kind of again, if you can't speak the language, it's hard for people to respect what you're saying. So giving you a practical example, I worked for a healthcare organization and we had a medical records department. And the manager of the medical records department was like, we need more people, we need more people. And finance was like, no, you're not getting any more people, you're not getting more people, right? So I had to actually go into the medical records department and sit there for a few days and watch what they were doing. And when I saw what they were doing, I saw they were inefficient, right? They weren't using their systems. And I was able to, one, not only show the department where there was workflow gaps, but I was also able to show finance where we don't need to hire a lot more people, but we need to hire people that have higher skill sets. Because I had someone in there that was counting pages. So, you know, I'm not gonna get too much into details, but you can bill insurance companies every time they ask for medical records. So when you bill a certain number of pages, well, she was in there 1, 2, 3. I was like, oh my God, you know, and I was like, just a count at the bottom of the computer. Right. So she didn't have, I was like, you don't have to do that. Right. But that's why I was taking up half her day. So they're talking about they need another person. No, you don't. You need someone who can actually count. She didn't know how to do 10%. Right. She's trying to, I'm like, you don't have to put that in the calculator, just move the decimal over. Right. So if you, sometimes it's a matter of showing, you just need someone that has a higher skill set and you have to show finance. We need to put more money into that department, but not because we need more people. It's because we need a higher skill set. But if you can't show that and you don't know that language as an HR professional, well, then you're a detriment to the organization because you're going to be throwing money away. That department would have never changed. They would have had 10 people in there doing things archaic. So that's my story on that.
So we need to let finance know we need training and development money.
Exactly.
That's what we need. Okay.
I find that a lot of times HR, like we get calls like just like that, like that we need more people. And when you go back to the business and you really have a conversation with them, it's about resources and it's about like, you know, where can you find capacity within the organization that might be able to go and help? Like whether it's to upskill those folks or to help out on an interim basis because they actually are slow or this time of the year, or they actually really have permanent capacity. So we get a lot of calls like we need help with this. And, you know, we're like, well, we're not hiring for that. We have to go figure that out. So
Also, how many of you, show of hands, carry a budget? You own a budget, you're responsible for a budget, right? Automation is now a huge cost within your budget, in addition to your team. And so maximizing that will help the company maximize revenue. So if you can maximize your operational costs and what you're doing, how you're doing it, if you can do more with the same resources, but perhaps automate some of those steps, it's not enough, let's say, to just know Excel basics. Maybe you need to run a pivot table. Maybe you need to do, so really leaning into that. L&D is an HR cost. So learning and development and all that, whatever system you have, whether you have paying a person to do it, to come in and present, or if you're using things online that you are going to have an opportunity cost to people taking the time to do that, right? So all of that matters. And we have to remember to build that into the budgets so that we can be more effective in the data that we're providing them. We're all data driven. If I said something right now, y'all pull out your phones, and we're technology living every aspect of our being today. It's business. We have to be ready for it, and we have to be super agile with it.
Great, thanks, ladies. I have a question for all of you. In your roles as an executives, what are the key financial skills needed for HR professionals today? And are there training opportunities available to increase the knowledge and development? Margot.
So some of what we just talked about is key. Knowing how to prepare a budget, execute a budget, look for cost savings, know how to use data systems, not just Excel, but we have actual financial systems out there, whether it's something as in-depth as SAP, or if it's something that's Peachtree and QuickBooks and more, whatever it is, whatever your HRS tools are, whatever your financial systems are, learn them, at least have a basic knowledge of them. Shadow people. That's a learning opportunity. So some things might be online, some might be job training, some might be shadowing somebody who's doing the job, having a conversation, going to lunch with somebody and having an informal coffee corner or something to understand what they do, what you do, where it intersects, how you can make it better, what financial pieces is integral for you to understand, even if you haven't been able to do it thus far. So, basic inquiry is helpful. Online courses is helpful. Signing up for some of the courses at the colleges and universities, right? They have certifications. We don't actually have to always go back and get that next, third, fourth, fifth degree anymore. You can get the certifications, and don't be afraid of doing that. And don't be afraid to charge back to your company, because you're learning and developing to benefit them. So those are some of the things that I would strongly advise: getting your certificates, getting advanced degrees, going for formal learning, and then also going for informal learning and opportunities inside of your companies.
Thank you, Lori.
What Margot said, yeah, I loved everything that you said and agree 100%. I think it's about continuing to upskill yourself. Like someone said to me once, don't get lost. And I'm like, I wasn't really trying to become lost. Don't get lost and stay relevant. And I think that's when we serve clients in any professional services organization, we try to stay relevant for our clients, because rules are constantly changing, and we're always trying to bring our best ideas to the table. The same is true. Like when we're all in HR, everyone else is our client, right? And so to stay relevant, in order to stay relevant, to really continue to upskill yourself and to be able to be, curious. I talk about being curious a lot with people. We all start out curious. Maybe sometimes we become less curious. And so it's important to keep curiosity in the forefront, always ask questions, thought-provoking questions for people. You'll learn a lot. And so I think all of those things, as well as really just continuing to improve our data skills, interpretation of data skills, and to really get out in the business, rather than simply stay with your HR friends, like get out into the business and just get to know them and ask a lot of questions.
Great, that's good. Carrie?
Yeah, I would say one of the main things is know the strategic direction of your organization. And tie what you want to do back to strategy. Because if you can tie your departmental goals back to the overall strategy of the organization, then it makes it really hard for people to say no, right? Because you're tying it all back. Learning how to take the organizational goals and trickle them down to your departmental goals. Those are the types of things that will elevate you. So, like Margot said and Lori said, yes, your budget, knowing how to budget is key. But if you want to get into larger organizations, or you want to sit at the table, or you want to do higher level work, you have to become more strategic, goal oriented. It's not about how many times you moved the pencil from one end of the desk to the other. No, it's what is the strategy of the organization and how can my department support that strategy? That's what corporate America and larger organizations want to know. When I got on my job, I was handed the strategic goals and I was handed the HR goals, and you need to have all this done by the end of fiscal. Nobody cares if we revise 10 job descriptions. Nobody cares, no, I have goals that I have to meet. But if you're so used to just being tactile, if you're so used to just doing the same thing every day, you're never going to really be able to elevate yourself.
It's all about driving those business outcomes.
Okay. Carrie, what would be your advice for HR professional whose roles don't interface with finance as regularly and want to establish their relationship and value? Do you think they need to be an HR business partner or have an HR title?
So do you need to be an HR business partner to have a relationship with finance?
Yeah, do you think in order
ahead
to
of time, I didn't read
interface,
it.
in order to interface with finance, because those HR people who don't interface with finance regularly.
Yeah, I mean, Zoom in virtual world makes it difficult, right? Because you no longer are bumping into people getting coffee. You're no longer saying, hey, let's run out to lunch. But I also think it makes it a little bit simpler because you can just chat someone, what we do all the time. It's like, hey, can I have 5 or 10 minutes? I really think that if you connect with your finance person and say, listen, I want to learn more. Can we connect once a month? Can we connect twice a month so I can learn a little more about what's done in the finance department and how my department can support yours? I can't imagine any finance person would not want that, because people, as Lori said, people and benefits is the highest thing that's the most expensive thing for any organization, is your people and your benefits. So if you manage that and you run that, then it's a welcome to the finance person to know that that person wants to develop a relationship and let's work together and I want to learn more.
Thank you very much. What are key action steps for HR professionals? And you guys had touched on this a bit. The key action steps for HR professionals today to level up their skills in finance to overall advance their careers. I'll start with you, Margot.
So one, I would say have some career self-development goals, set some KPIs for your organization and your team, and then know what you have to do in order to help meet those KPIs so that you can start leveling up by learning that. I would say get SHRM certified. They've got a lot of classes and courses and webinars and conferences that will touch upon finance as well as other business fundamentals. McKinsey has a lot of free programming, leadership essentials, management accelerator, executive programs. So there is a myriad of opportunities out there for us to take advantage of. It's really about what type of role you have and what you want to do and how you want to go about doing it, how you can integrate it into your everyday life already, because we are mainly too busy to add a whole bunch of things on top of us anyway. So how do you make it a part of it? Ask your leaders, hey, you want me to do my job better? There's this conference I'm going to go to, and I'm going to bring back all best practices, and we're going to do this, I'm going to do that. And it's your regular day job time. It's not added onto your plate, on top of that. So those are some of the things I would say. Definitely certifications, definitely shadowing, definitely self-development, or evenings like this. It's networking and socializing, but you're learning, right? So looking for other opportunities like that, and then taking it back and actually trying some of the things that we're learning, putting them into action, giving yourself a time window by which to achieve some of those KPIs personally and professionally, and having the SMART goals, right? And making sure that you're actioning upon them in order to meet the respective needs. So that would be my response.
Thank you. Lori?
Yeah, I have two things to add. One is we actually spend a lot of time with the Gartner resources, so like McKinsey. There's just a lot of resources there. They have a lot of thought leadership, a lot of toolkits that if you have an idea, they probably have a toolkit. It makes life a lot easier for you to get it like stood up, which is, time is money. So if someone else has thought through how to do it and you can take it and make it your own, that's no pride in that. That's all good. I think the other part too, and I'm for the first one to say, oh, I really like when I do this for myself, is to really block out time to think during the day, and think about your company, think about what you're trying to accomplish, back to the development, whether it's your own personal development goals or the goals that you have in your role for this next year, and think about where you stand in that and what you need to do to accomplish it, and do something about it in that moment. So I know I try to do that every single day, just to take a breath and kind of think about like, where do I stand? Who do I need to connect? What information do I need to get to somebody so that they can get back to me and I can continue to move this along? So, give yourself that grace and give yourself the ability to like be available for people more often than we already are, because we are really busy.
Thank you, Lori.
I don't really have anything earth shattering, just additional to say, besides one of the things that, so like, when do you do that? Right? Like, I mean, Lord knows my magazines were piling up, all kinds of stuff was piling up. So, I decided around Christmas, I was just going to come off of social media. And do you know, by coming off of social media, and I was only going to watch TV on the weekends, I actually like got through like 7 books and all my magazines. And I mean, it was unbelievable. I was like, whoa, and so you have to ask yourself, like, how serious are you, right, about upskilling yourself, and where are you wasting time? And for me, I can only speak for myself. I was wasting so much time like on social media and binge watching. I mean, it was probably like, oh, I binge watched 8 episodes. It's like, wow, that's 80 hours of television. You might not want to tell people that. So
What'd you watch?
all kinds of stuff. But I definitely just stopped, right? Because I saw these magazines I'm paying for piling up. I was like, oh no. So definitely like just take the time, like these ladies have said, and upskill yourself. There's so many free resources. AI, you can ask AI almost anything. And you can
Use it to write an article though.
No,
That's not a good
an article, but you can ask it almost anything. It's a great resource, and it'll print it all out for you. And, so definitely become familiar with all the things, stay abreast, stay relevant, because time moves quickly, technology moves quickly, and it's just really, really important.
Intentionality. That sums up everything that was just discussed. Intentionality. Take the steps, make it happen, remove the excuses, walk through it. It won't be easy, but it's intentional. You'll get the result out from what you put in, and then you'll be able to move just one step at a time to the next thing.
Thank you so much, ladies. This has been a wonderful panel. I'm going to turn it back over to Danita for questions and answers.
Thank you. Let's give our panelists a round of applause. That was amazing. All right, so now we want to open it up for Q&A. If anyone has any questions that you want to ask the panelists, just raise your hand. I'll come around if you have any questions that may pertain to what you may know personally.
Hi, I'm Carla Baynard, and full confession, I'm not an HR person nor a finance person, but I always like to come because you never know if you can get best practices from other areas. But I do have a question. In my role, I'm a director of client services, and and my clients are pharmaceutical clients. And within my team, we're looking to find ways for career ladders. And I thought about some of the stuff that you were saying. Some companies don't believe in it. Some companies can't find the time to do it. But there's value, I think, if you repurpose and help the current employees that you have get to that next level. So, in thinking about how to make a case for that, in my role, I would be using HR and finance as my internal business partners. And so do you have any ideas or recommendations on how I would get started in making that case for career ladders?
Yeah, did you call it ladders or did you say career managers at the end? Ladders, okay, that's what I thought. Okay, so it depends. Can I just start out like be a little wishy-washy? So when there's a lot of in my profession of public accounting, it's a little bit of like a career progression. Like you're expected to go from a staff accountant to a senior accountant, to a manager accountant, to a senior manager. Like it's a progression, right? And so we can very easily put together progression models of this is what we expect at every level. And people move up or they don't move up based upon very clear criteria. And then we have many other roles throughout the company. And I'm suspecting all of your companies that the role is that level. And that's hard, right? Because you want to be able to provide mobility and career progression for that person who wants to move up. However, in order for that to happen, somebody either needs to move on from their role for one reason or another, and then them feeling like, and you all feel like that they could move into that role. So that's a little bit, it's harder. And we do have aspects of our client service business. We have aspects of our operations groups that the role is, this is the level. And we want to be able to groom you for that next level, but it really so there's two things. One is somebody leaves or we continue to grow. And with growth does come more opportunity. When the organization isn't growing, opportunities are just slower to come by. And somebody really may need to ultimately move on in order for that to happen. But yes, it's not easy.
I would say in building a business case for it, you look at who you have and how it's structured. And you think about, is there flexibility for ranges? So we have what we call T1, T2, T3, but within the T1, T2, T3, we have 1, 2, and 3. So you might be a T1, 2, and somebody else might be a T3, 2, right? So you want to have some flexibility within the ranges. You want to have transparency. You want to show how do you get to each career level and what that looks like, and the difference between a progression and promotion. And if you can show that people have transferable skills that helps them do those jobs, that can be business case justification for that ladder. And not every ladder move might come with necessarily compensation bump that you want, but it's iterative, right? So building a skills bank and saying, okay, this is the team that they're in, but here's the other teams that can leverage those same set of skills. What does that level look like over there? Maybe this role does max out at this level. Who says I want to stay in that role? I've been at SAP 16 years, 5 roles, 3 different board areas, finance and accounting, business ops, and now HR since 2018. So for me, I didn't necessarily seek it out to be those things, but I saw what was available. I understood the transferable skills. I tried to help other people with building what they were doing, and I stayed involved. So if there was a career program to be in, LEAP, EAP, Talent to Watch, Women to Watch, Catalyst, whatever it was, you help your people understand what is available in the company and how to get through those levels. And again, leveraging your network, because I think that helps to business case justify the value of the work being done across the teams and the need for the career ladders, because not everybody who started at the same time or went to the same school has the same set of skills overall. So a little bit of data mining and business case justification building in order to show what's needed and where and how.
And I also heard visibility in there too. I heard like being visible.
If you could convince also, I've seen work really well is job shadowing. So if you could sell to your organization to set up a mentorship or a job shadowing day, or, however you want to structure that, but that's really, really helpful because that ties people into different roles that they might not have been exposed to, ties them into people that they might not have been exposed to. And then you're connecting and networking. And then even if that person doesn't elevate right away, they at least feel like that they've been poured into and they've learned something different and they've learned something else about the organization.
Okay, before we get to our next question, the title of the book has been requested by our live streamers.
So the title of the book is Financial Analysts for HR Managers, Tools for Linking HR Strategy to Business Strategy by Stephen Director.
Thank you.
Okay, so in the spirit of page transparency, I know within the last 2 to 3 years, there's been a lot more transparency and visibility with the compensation scales or what a job profile is offering. In your roles, have you seen any negative or positive consequences of pay transparency, or what are your thoughts?
So, yes. So you have to know your organization and you have to know the people in your organization. Not every truth needs to be spoken at that particular time. So if you know that the people in your organization are not at an emotionally intelligent place, that they can handle pay transparency, then it probably is not a good idea. I'm always about transparency, but you have to know the people you work with. And if the organization isn't, it's like you can't, not every organization can do unlimited PTO. Not everybody can handle that, right? So you have to know the people you work with and can they handle that transparency and what are they going to do with that information?
So I would say we've seen some positive and negative. So we're a government contractor, and accordingly, we do have to disclose our pay ranges externally for a lot of our roles. And we do have pay transparency internally because we want you to know if you're going to ask for a raise, know what you need to be doing to get the raise. I had somebody call me last week to ask me to help him put together a business case justification for a 50% increase. Now, you know, she works at SAP too, but I think everybody knows you're not getting a 50% increase. You're just not. Like, that's not even feasible. Like, I understand shoot high, come down low, negotiate, but I'm like, they're going to just usher you out of the room. Can you start with a reasonable? Well, I saw on the pay transparency tool. Okay, so let's start with the pay transparency tool and let's look at where you fit into that. And are you doing which levels? You know, it can have a negative impact because somebody may see, oh, I saw you posted the role for XYZ and I only make such and such, and I've been here such amount of time. Okay, but the roles have changed. The requirements have changed. You're still doing it manually and can't count. You said the person was the play. That's what you said. The person couldn't do it. But Miss Gen Z, who is a digital native, can come in and do it with her eyes closed, hand tied behind her with Siri, right? So we have to understand that the competencies have changed too, that justify some of the current pay ranges that weren't in existence when you came to the company and you get your iterative increases along the way. We also have to understand inflation and other economics and socioeconomics and macroeconomics that play into the current. And that's where having a finance and business acumen is also very important. When you're asking to re-salary some of your positions and compensation, you have to know the when, the why, what can the market bear? What is the industry saying? Have you talked to Gartner and McKinsey? And what is this going to do to your stock price when you have an adverse impact at the company level because you did all these things with your pay scales and transparency? So we've seen negative and positive to that public disclosure and to the internal pay transparency, but I say it equips you with knowledge and data to go after and make sense of very strategically and intentionally, bringing it back to that intentionality.
Can also tie into your DE&I efforts, right? So if you have pay transparency, then people can't do things that they should not be doing, right? So it's like, these are the ranges and we're working within those ranges, regardless if it's your neighbor or it's the person that you, play golf with at the country club. No, they don't get to come in above and the range. So there are some very positive things that you can do with being transparent with your ranges, but you just have to know your organization.
And consult your lawyers. We had Littler come in and do a whole pay equity study. People had to be salaried up or down to get into the right range.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, going back to 5 years ago, we had no data. You know, this is a journey for us. And so we participated in a Mercer study every year of the top 40 accounting firms, including the Big Four. And I think we put that study in a drawer and nobody really ever took it out. So now we have access to it, 365 days a year. And once we get that back, we benchmark all of our people against their peers in the study and know exactly where everybody stands. And so we don't share that data with our people. So SAP is light years ahead of us. It's something that we talk about. You know, we talk, we actually talked about we're entering our compensation time of the year. So we're talking about our strategy for communication today. I was talking about that. And so we use words to describe what that looks like for people. And so we're less about actually sharing the ranges and the bands. And, you know, I would say a lot of firms are where we are, and others, you know, I would say some of the big four probably do a little bit more than that. But generally speaking, in our profession, you know, we don't give a whole lot of information to our people. However, they have lots of access out on the internet on lots of different places, including our own job ads, obviously, that we're required in many states right now to, or if he has the inkling of being hired in that state, a lot of our jobs have those pay ranges on them.
I think we may have time for a question.
And innovation at Quantum Financial Consultant. So I create strategy playbooks for a multi-stakeholder organization. And my question is about M&A. So post integration with another company with the interdepartmental collaboration, what are some best practices HR uses to not only help educate employees, but in terms of like the impact for the overall organization? What does that look like?
If I can start with that, I've lived it from finance. When I was at SAP in the finance department, I actually did a stint in corporate integration, and then now in HR, having to live it. When you're bringing together the companies from a diversity, equity, and inclusion perspective, you want to be inclusive of everybody's practices. You want to be equitable in your processes. You want to look at the diversity of experiences, because you usually can't keep everyone, right? And so you want to very strategically understand before making the acquisition, not just the financial benefits, but the cultural benefits and operational benefits that you're going to get from that. The opportunity costs that are going to come with what you do or don't do around it, and then how to navigate it. You want to line up like-kind roles and people, and then see how much you're paying at the company being acquired, and then your own legacy systems. So you can decide which systems and processes and programs and benefits to keep, and which ones it's not feasible to keep. A lot of people probably run our SAP Concur for your T&E. That was a huge undertaking for us. And we still struggle with some of the integration pieces, because fundamentally the way people operated in that size company and that type of company is a service-oriented T&E is different than a huge SAP who's running for the entirety of 440,000 customers, 20,000 partners, and 80% of the global economy. So you have to know your business, and then the businesses being acquired, or if you're, consulting companies who are doing those acquisitions, help them to understand before they sign on the dotted line what that integration model will look like, and to please involve finance and HR as the key partners in the integration steps. Build that framework out, delegate the steps to who is going to be, and look to the business outcomes at the end of it, not just the activities that will take place.
Yeah, I couldn't have said any better. When you're dealing with an M&A, like the most important thing is your homework. Like because if you don't do your homework and you don't do some of those practical steps ahead of time, aligning the departments, what do the benefits look like on all parts? What does the pay structure look like? What are the systems that are being used? If you've got to do that ahead of time, otherwise when you merge, if you then try and you acquire and you try to mix all the stuff together, the employees are like, what in the world is going on here? This is a mess. But if you can get ahead of it and make sure you do your homework prior to the actual merger and know all of the systems that will be impacted, how are the people going to be impacted? How are salaries, benefits? I mean, so much that goes into that, but the key is doing all of that work ahead of time, convincing the leadership team that we need to start this way far in advance, not when we sign on the dotted line.
Yeah, I would say that due diligence and M&A integration should happen concurrently. And ideally, it really shouldn't even be the same team, or if they do, lots of communication between them. We've acquired about 8 companies in the last year, and probably we'll do another 8 or 10 over the next year. So we're really acquisitive right now. And so we've stood up, in addition to let's say a firm-wide integration team, each of the operations group has stood up its own M&A team. So I have an HR M&A integration team that gets involved in due diligence, integration planning, and then integration on the other side. And we actually just added to it, which really super important, the like employee engagement piece of it, because I think all of the HR COEs had the best intentions of providing a wonderful experience of onboarding at Eisner-Amper. And we bombard people with stuff. And then not only we do, but then so does ETI, and then so does finance, because they're doing billing and collection training. And then like everyone's got their own little work streams. And so we said, we really need to pull back and understand how that's laying on people, because they're joining a wonderful firm that will hopefully have a wonderful career at. And we want them to have the experience of onboarding in the firm to be as welcoming as possible, but then also as pleasurable as possible. And if it gets too overwhelming because everyone's pulling at them at the same time, we want to be able to think about that a little bit more thoughtfully. Really good question.
All right. Thank you so much. Let's give a round of applause for the panelists again. And also to our moderator, Tracy Flint, who did an excellent job tonight. Great. If you enjoyed the conversation, discussion, they were dropping gems, please join us. We will be having another event next week here at the P4 Hub. It's titled the Black HR Experience, which our partnership with Philly Sherm. So you can go to our website and register for that. If you want more information, you can also sign in sheet on the back to join our community so that you get updates about what we're doing. And just as some of the panelists have mentioned about career development, we have a new partnership with Villanova. If you are looking to do your SHRM CP or SCP, you can get that at a discounted rate, as well as a discount on your exam. And we also have Essentials of HR through Villanova, which is a 2-day boot camp that we'll be offering in the fall. So if you want more information on that, we will be sending that out. And please connect with us for these great resources. But thank you again for coming out, and have a good night. There is more food. There's more wine. You come up and chat with the panelists. Network.